Some Zelda games do really well, others not so much. The series has always been one of Nintendo's heavy hitters, often put at the forefront of console launches and given special attention in celebrations. But even in a series like The Legend of Zelda, some titles don't perform quite as well as you might think, despite being totally enjoyable games. Titles like The Minish Cap, Four Swords Adventures, and Spirit Tracks all suffered from low sales, despite all being solid games and worthy entries in the Zelda series. Today though, we're talking about a game that often isn't really taken seriously, even by Zelda fans. A game that sold poorly, got rated poorly, and yet I can't help but try and appreciate it just a little bit. Triforce Heroes. Triforce Heroes, from the miscellaneous sales figures I could find on the oh-so-reliable internet, is the second lowest selling main entry title, and generally the second lowest rated game next to Zelda 2. As for why it didn't sell so well, there's a lot of possible contributing factors. For one, it came out in late 2015, a bit of a low point for Nintendo as a whole. It also didn't help that the 3DS had already gotten a top-down Zelda in A Link Between Worlds, which somewhat devalued Triforce Heroes as a Zelda title. From most of the early advertising, it seemed to simply be a cooperative top-down Zelda, which isn't bad, but generally you would expect a Zelda game to be a single-player, story-focused experience, and with a game like that already on the slowly dying platform, it probably just didn't offer enough value to most Zelda fans of the time. Just because it wasn't commercially successful though, doesn't mean it isn't a good game. But does Triforce Heroes deserve a second chance, perhaps now while Nintendo rides high on the Switch, or should the game be left in obscurity? To answer that question, here's my analysis of the game as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, the game is designed as a co-op Zelda game, which is actually a little different from the other multiplayer Zeldas. Those games did require cooperation at times, but there was always a strong sense of competition there too, ranking players by who gets the most rupees, force gems, or whatever the goal is. According to game director Hiromasa Shikata, he was inspired to make a cooperative Zelda game by Spirit Tracks, where you can control both Link and Zelda to progress through the game's central dungeon. If you've played both games, you can definitely see some similarities, as both make use of having multiple heroes at play simultaneously. In Triforce Heroes, a lot of the cooperation comes from the totem mechanic, where you form a Link sandwich to grab keys off of high cliffs or attack tall or flying enemies. As for why there are only 3 Links in this game instead of 4, Shikata mentioned that having a 4-person totem was too tall in testing. Not the most exciting answer, but I can see where that would have made gameplay a little tricky to sort out. The game takes place in a kingdom called Hytopia, a fashion-forward land cast into terror by a witch's curse placed on Princess Styla in the form of an irremovable, hideous outfit. King Tuft, the kingdom's monarch, issued a call for 3 heroes to enter the dangerous Drablands and save the day. As one of the 3 Triforce heroes, you must hunt down the witch, also known as the Lady, and try to get her to undo the curse. Eventually, you find out that the witch actually wasn't doing so with evil intent, instead thinking that the outfit was the peak of fashion, which... yeah. In terms of a Zelda story, this one is definitely a bit lackluster. The whole thing is pretty low stakes, and the one thing they try to play as a twist is that the antagonist is related to the outfit supplier, Madame Couture. It definitely falls short of regular Zelda storytelling, but if you try not to compare it to the rest of the series, it's a fun, silly story that complements some gameplay aspects nicely. Of course, this being a video game, the story is only supplemental to the gameplay. So, how well does the game play? That's a bit of a trick question, really. There are essentially 3 main ways to play Triforce Heroes: local multiplayer, online multiplayer, and single player. Local multiplayer, in my opinion, is the definitive way to play Triforce Heroes. The game is so well designed for multiplayer, it just feels like you're playing a game like A Link Between Worlds, but multiplayer. Often puzzles will make use of the unique items given to different heroes, such as one Link throwing a bomb that the other then blows away with a gust jar to hit a switch. Other times, you'll need to throw each other over pits and retrieve each other using the boomerang. Even combat is well made for 3 heroes, your team might become surrounded by enemies, encouraging you to split up and fight them off, whereas other times you'll need to band together to defeat one more powerful enemy. Naturally, this mode can only be played with other people, but if your friends don't own the cartridge, you can play through download play, which is a nice touch. However, what if you could play with people you didn't know? Online multiplayer is definitely similar to local multiplayer, but this time you can't talk directly with who you're playing with. In place of vocal cords and eyeballs, you get these little emote-like communication icons. From waving hello to saying goodbye, these things do not do it all. I mean, they serve their purpose, but if I want to say, let me pick you up so you can charge up a spin attack and then I'll throw you like a Link tornado, the 8 communication icons don't let me convey that all too well. I was fortunate enough to join a full lobby for one round of Triforce Heroes, and let me tell you, it wasn't as bad as you'd think. Sure, we chose one of the crazy hard challenges that involves being constantly thwomped by wallmasters, but it was a fun time, just not really successful. In other words, online play still works fine, but local play is definitely more ideal. Yet, this doesn't account for those who just want to play on their own, and neither did the developers until they decided, you know, it would probably be a good idea to include a single player mode, which they did. Yes, Triforce Heroes has a single player mode as well. This is how most Zelda games are intended to be played, but in Triforce Heroes, it's a little clunkier than most other games. As Link, you are accompanied by 2 Doppels, clones of Link that you can control by swapping to them from the touchscreen. You can interact with them like you would with 2 other actual players, making it possible to complete every level as you would in multiplayer. As far as a multiplayer substitute goes, this is pretty good, but it's clear that certain parts aren't as smooth as they could be with 2 living companions. The final boss in particular can be a bit of a hassle, having to swap between Doppels while in fairly fast-paced combat. The majority of the main story is still quite playable in single player, but if a level does give you trouble, the game gives you the option to skip stages at the cost of a fairy. So, if multiplayer doesn't work out, single player is always there as a backup. Of course, that's not all the game has to offer. Triforce Heroes has a proper PvP mode as well, and this one doesn't even require 3 people to play. The Colosseum mode can be played 1 versus 1 or 3-player free-for-all, allowing the Links to have an all-out war on one of various arena stages. The nice thing with one-on-one battles is you don't necessarily need 3 people to play, and since the game's online servers are a barren wasteland these days, it's nice that you have some hope of getting in a battle with somebody. I never played the PvP mode all that much, but I did manage to get in one battle recently, and I have to say, it's about all you could ask for in a top-down Zelda arena. You can vote on different maps that have different items, and a lot of strategy comes into play when choosing outfits. Lump in the well-built regular combat, and you can see what a more modern take on PvP Zelda looks like. But I've gone too long ignoring a major part of this game: outfits. Outfits can be purchased from Madame Couture, paid for with rupees and materials you gather in the Drablands. Every time you complete one section of the Drablands, you can get one material from a treasure chest at the end. These materials can be used to make new outfits, which either power up abilities Link has, like adding an extra heart container, or give him all new abilities, like being able to walk on lava. There are tons of outfits in the game too, with some drastically shifting the difficulty of the game. My only major complaint with the outfit system is that most of the time, if you want an outfit for a certain area of the game, like the lava walking outfit for the volcanic area, you probably won't get the materials you need until you're done or nearly done with the volcanic area. So by the time you can get some outfits, they're basically useless besides replaying those stages. Fortunately, replaying stages is made more interesting by something called Drablands Challenges. If you thought the game was too easy the first time around, boy do I have news for you. Every single level of the game can be replayed with 3 different Drablands challenges applied, such as decreased heart containers or being constantly chased by wallmasters. As a reward for playing these challenges, the materials you can get change depending on the challenge, with some of the most useful and powerful materials being locked behind these challenges. Though many of them are simply slight changes to old courses, they typically make a big change to how you approach a level, and the rewards are usually worth it as well. And that just about sums up Triforce Heroes gameplay. It's not the most massive top-down Zelda, and most fans won't try to argue that it really even compares in scope to titles like A Link Between Worlds, but for a co-op Zelda game, I think it does the series justice. If the base game didn't satisfy you though, Merry Christmas, because the December following its release, the Triforce Heroes 2.0 update was unleashed. Some of the stuff it added seemed like it probably should have been there before, like the option to choose a casual or experienced playstyle while playing online, or blacklisting players, but it added a substantial amount of new content as well. The update added 2 new outfits, the Lindbeck outfit and the Fierce Deity outfit, which were not only overpowered, but also made awesome references to prior Zelda games. The Fierce Deity outfit was locked behind an all-new series of combat challenges, the Den of Trials. This mini-dungeon is comprised of 40 floors of difficult battles against super strong dark versions of old enemies. These challenges not only add a lot of extra playtime, but are crowned by probably the trickiest battle in the entire game, 3 Shadow Links. If you want to truly test yourself and or your friends, the Den of Trials is probably as tricky as it gets, and beating the final battle is definitely among the more rewarding experiences I've had in a 2D Zelda game. I've talked your ears off about the gameplay, so how about we switch over to another important aspect of the game, the sound design. Truly, this would not be a Zelda game if it didn't have good music. The title screen sets the mood pretty well with an upbeat, inspiring little tune, which gets variations tossed in through other themes in the game. Every area of the Drablands has a different theme too, and they all match the atmosphere of these areas magnificently. I honestly can't remember an area of the game where I didn't like the background music, or where it felt wrong in some way. It all just worked. If the music just isn't intense enough for you though, get this. Every theme in the Drablands is dynamic, changing depending on your position in a totem. If you're at the base of a totem, drums and extra vocals are added to make the song more exciting. Being at the top of the totem makes it all spooky and eerie sounding. And being in the middle is sort of in between. Surprising, I know. Well, what if the music is just too high quality for you? I've literally never heard that complaint, but if you're looking for a more retro experience, the developers accounted for that too. Introducing the Timely Tunes outfit, a chunky looking suit that really isn't all that flattering. Thankfully, this one isn't about looks. Rather, it changes every tune in the game to be reminiscent of the NES and SNES era, mimicking 8 and 16-bit music effects. While this is the only bonus the outfit provides, it honestly is worth going back to a few stages just with this outfit to see how the tracks have been remixed. The Timeless Tunes outfit even unlocks a super secret Easter egg, one taken from Triforce Heroes' partner in infamy, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Earlier I mentioned the Shadow Link fight, which has been a trope in Zelda games since Zelda 2's final boss battle. Triforce Heroes doesn't fall short on references to the original battle, remixing the boss battle theme, the boss clear theme, and the closing theme of the game. With the Timeless Tunes outfit, however, these songs all play exactly as they did in The Adventure of Link. Since the outfit provides no advantages, you'll know that if you hear that boss clear theme, you've earned it, no matter which game you're playing. Background music isn't all this game has to offer in terms of sound design, despite how incredible it is. If you have a keen ear, while playing you might have noticed Link's voice sounds a bit different than it does in A Link Between Worlds. Or it might have at least. When you create a new file, Link's voice is randomly chosen from one of 4 voices. His Link Between Worlds voice, his Ocarina of Time voice, his Wind Waker voice, and his voice from Spirit Tracks. I honestly find this really cool, since it not only makes each Link a little more unique, but these little callbacks to previous titles are just super fun, especially when they don't get in the way of other features of the game. Another subtle detail with Link's voice is that when alongside 2 other Links, each Link's voice is pitched slightly differently to help differentiate them. While this doesn't make a big impact on the game as a whole, it's this kind of attention to detail that makes me like the game that much more. Triforce Heroes is definitely a bit overlooked in the Zelda series. It may not be the greatest game in the series, but if you've ever wanted to play Zelda together with a friend or two, this is one of the best ways. Don't get me wrong though, if the game ever gets a remake, it could use some touching up, especially when playing in single player. I think one thing that would smooth out a lot in this mode would be the return of a feature from the Four Swords games, calling the other links. These games had the option to, at the press of a button, have the other heroes return to the active hero at any given time, no matter where they were. After you do that, they would automatically follow you around, making it easy to travel as a unit. Triforce Heroes doesn't have anything like this though. Making the range of the callback ability infinite would almost certainly break some puzzles, so maybe giving it a limited range would be the best way to do it in this game. Just so long as the other links can follow me without me carrying them around everywhere. Also, to make things objectively better, just add the option to equip the Doppels with outfits. This would make single player much more forgiving, since you would be able to choose outfits that gave your team extra hearts, or even just simple things like the Tingle outfit, which saves you from taking damage from a few normally harmful falls. One thing that always annoyed me was how Doppels can take damage from falling down, so I would legitimately consider giving them Tingle outfits if only to save a few hearts. In the case of a Switch port, a few things would need to change since the Switch doesn't have two screens. For starters, swapping Doppels would need to be done by shoulder or trigger buttons, which honestly would make it much less tedious than it is with a touchscreen. The communication icons would also need to be moved, probably to the arrow pad, though there might be fewer options as a result. Not that they're super useful anyway, but they still are good for some things. Besides the touchscreen, one other part of Triforce Heroes is no longer around, being Miiverse. The game encouraged you to take pictures and share them through Miiverse, though I think this system could easily be reworked to a simple message sharing platform like Splatoon 2 did, or if they're desperate, just use the Nintendo Switch Online app. Maybe they could make the whole thing a little more fun while they're at it. I liked taking pictures of the various items referenced by the game's Drablands Diaries, but there wasn't much else to do besides that. Maybe they could add bonus materials for taking pictures of certain enemies to incentivize more photography. Besides those changes though, the game doesn't have many compatibility issues with the Switch. Just crank up the graphics, rework the controls, and some outdated systems, and you're good to go. So there you have it. I have poured out my rather excessive thoughts on the second most infamous, nearly worst selling main Zelda title. Have you played Triforce Heroes? And if so, do you think it deserves a second chance? Or is the game just not worth prioritizing over, say, remastering Zelda 2? Let me know what you think about this hidden gem in the series. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time you're in the Legend Zone.